And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Bubba and the BatFlip, episode 59. We keep going around the diamond here with our too early for positional previews for the Fantasy Baseball 2021 season. Going to second base tonight, going top 10 NFBC Draft Champions ADP from November 1st on. Go with some later round targets and some listener questions, as always, for the wonderful second base position. So it should be an absolute doozy. You can find me on Twitter at BDentric, and my co-host is always on this endeavor on Twitter at BatFlipCrazy. Toby, how we doing, man?
Bubba, we are doing well. I think I'm excited about Thanksgiving and fortunate enough to have the day off and the day after that off. So I could really use a little bit of a breather right here. So I'm excited about it. But who am I kidding? I just want to be able to draft fantasy baseball teams. I started my first draft of the year. I was going to wait till Thanksgiving. And then I was like, well, I want to be doing it during Thanksgiving. So let's rock. So I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, too. I started my first one, might be a week ago now, give or take, at NFBC 50s. So you're doing the draft and holds. I saw that, the 150. I'm doing the NFBC 50s, Mason's in it, and some other people from FWFB, and then some other people I don't know. But that's been quite interesting as well during the whole – it's fun to get to learn the player pool some more, even though we already have a good gist on it. But like we're at around 28 now, and it's starting to get like I drafted Evan Rios around 25, going, okay, I can get another third baseman later to make it fun. But since it's a draft and hold, we'll see what Evan Rios has later. Stuff like that, where you kind of change things up a bit. It's been kind of interesting to see. I want to see how it all plays out in the end, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, I actually did something I've never done before in this, which I created like a target spreadsheet, and I essentially put all the rounds and the pick ranges, and then I went position by position. Who are the guys that I like, just to see like where are the pockets of each position that I like. And it's been kind of helpful to have that a little bit. So I don't know, trying new things in the new season. It's fun.
Nice. Yeah. One thing I know, and I didn't do the pocket program like you're talking about, but the outfield is very, very deep, much, much deeper than it's been in the past. It feels like it is crazy deep. Like I grabbed a couple guys early, and then every time I come back to my pick, I'm like, well, this outfielder's awesome. Like, I want this guy. But then I'm like, well, there's all these other guys going. Like, Andrew McCutcheon's going like around 20 or something. It's just there's stuff that goes – there's still a lot on the board to begin with. But it's going to be fun doing multiple drafts, kind of getting different strategies and play for the big boy stuff come, March. Because looking at the player plug, like outfield's deep. We talked first base is kind of weirdly deep last week. Yeah. We're going to get through that in a couple other positions as we go around. Obviously, shortstop's going to be a 45-hour podcast because there's so many of them. But
we'll make it 46, Bubba, because we go deep.
The best.
We're as deep as outfield is.
Yes, we are. But we'll get to that in coming weeks. We'll do second base tonight. But beforehand, let's talk about it real quick. For those that are living under a rock, this week on CBS Fantasy Baseball is Bubba the BatFlip week. So I was on the Monday show. Toby actually recorded right before this, so it'll be coming out for you on Wednesday. So thoughts?
I mean, I was flattered. I was flattered because I was invited, but I didn't know that you were invited. And then I think it was like I reached out to you and I was like, hey, are we still doing Sundays? Or are we doing Tuesdays? And you were like, oh, well, we're going to do Tuesday, remember? And I have something booked already on Sunday. And Frank had asked if I could do it on Tuesday. And I was like, well, I got the Tuesday at 8:30. And, we moved it around, so I didn't want to switch it, but we could do it at 7. So it was funny. And then I found out it was you. And then I listened to the podcast, which was excellent. And then I learned that there's like a Bubba and the BatFlip week on the biggest podcast in fantasy baseball industry.
Yep.
Who knew?
Pretty crazy. Yeah, who knew? These guys. Us. Who figured? But
our listeners.
Yes, the listeners.
If we're bringing the best content. That's what I'm going to do all the time. I can't even remember which fingers go in which direction. We're just going to point at you guys as listeners.
Just on all the stream.
We're just going to point.
All
of you.
Yeah, no, but it was awesome. It was fun. It was, like you said, I was flattered. Like Frank reached out. Frank reached out probably a few weeks ago to see if I'd even be available. I said, yeah, I think I can make it work. Just let me know when. Just let me know when.
Let me adjust my yes.
I think I can make CBS work. And then when he mentioned, because I laughed because he hit me up. As a matter of fact, Sundays are open for me now. And then you texted me like 2 hours later. I'm just laughing, going, "Okay, I know what's going on now."
See, you're smarter than me. You figured it out, and I was like, So
But there's a little behind the curtains for the listeners out there. And in reality, the reason why I want to bring it up is this wouldn't have happened without you guys listening to this show. So we appreciate that very, very much. So we got to kind of do a little bucket list stuff for ourselves because of you guys. So thank you along those lines. And one shameless plug for the Bench with Bubba podcast. If you guys listen to this Friday's episode, I will have an announcement for a special December giveaway thing I will be working on. So
very cool.
Check that out. Yeah.
And I'm going to say, if people are listening to this on my feed, on the BatFlip Crazy feed, because we put it out on separate feeds, listen to Bench with Bubba. Bubba's always got he's an amazing podcast personality, and he's always got great content on there. He's always got great guests on there, and he gives a lot of people who maybe don't have, haven't had a chance to do a podcast. He was the first person to have me on it as a podcast. So definitely listen over there to the podcasts that are happening.
Well, thank you much.
Fantastic.
Thank you much. Yeah, it's going to be another fun 2021 season, so I'm looking forward to it. But let's just we could probably go off on rambling tangents because I think we both don't want to talk second base. But let's talk second base. Let's get into it. We'll do the same kind of format we've done at the other positions. We'll run through it. And on the bright side, we've already talked about the number one guy. So we're going to do the top 10 again, NFBC draft champions since November 1st. And number one guy, because he's got multi-position eligibility at first, second, and third, and we'll probably talk about him at third base in a couple weeks, is DJ LeMahieu, who's still a free agent. We talked about him a lot last week. Did you have anything else you wanted to mention on him besides he's got a great batting average and we have to kind of see where he plays and stuff like that?
Well, I've thought a lot about it, Bubba, since our last podcast, and I still have no idea why he's going where he's going. Why is he going in the top 30 picks?
No idea.
I mean, again, like if he signed with the Yankees, then I think it's all right. But just to give you a sense, he has 36 home runs in the last 2 seasons with the Yankees. 27 of them are at home. So outside of Yankee Stadium, he has hit 9 home runs in about 3/4 of a season. So if he's not really getting you a ton of stolen bases, and he's not really going to get you a ton of home runs if he doesn't end up in Yankee Stadium, I'd be waiting at least until he re-signs with the Yankees. And if he doesn't re-sign with the Yankees, then let somebody else take JT or.
Oh man, what's on your brain?
Oh no, the biggest Freudian slip ever. Whatever. These guys that have like DJ, JT, whatever. No offense to any of you who have names like that.
Oh yeah, no, I just don't like. We love him as a player. It was fun when he was going where he was going last year, which was still kind of high at times. But end of round 2 right now, 27.67, so 27 to 30 overall. And there's been a lot of moving since I started looking at ADPs like a month ago. Like Alberto Mondesi's going before him. That's bananas to me. Like other bats, I just wanted to mention right behind LeMahieu at 30 is Lou Bob. Then you have Ozzie Albies, we're going to talk about here in a minute. Kyle Tucker. Those are some guys going after him. It's a weird range of bats at that point in time. A lot of pitchers going there as well. Obviously, if you're double dipping or if you get one of the big bats early, you're probably going pitcher late second round as well. The way the formats are going, the way pitchers are flying off the board. So seeing LeMahieu go where he's going is pretty crazy. Like I'm going to do something real quick here, thanks to the wonderful search tool. Using just utility alone, LeMahieu is the 18th batter off the board. Let's just put it that way. First second baseman, 18th hitter off the board. He's the third first baseman off the board. First second baseman off the board. That's a little rich for me. That's all I'm going to say. So,
and we love DJ LeMahieu. He's a great guy. The batting average is great. The runs are great, but
yeah, it's tough. But a listener of the show, Breaking Ben _T, he sets us up here for the second guy off the board, and he's my number 1 second baseman on my rankings I released, and that's Ozzie Albies. And again, he's on about 4 picks after DJ right now. And again, he could be a steep price for some. It's just what we're also seeing. The reason these second basemen are boosted up is they are 4 to 5 category contributors at a very bad position. So you're kind of paying a premium due to the bad position. That's the argument you can make. I have Ozzie Albies 1. What's your thoughts on Ozzie Albies? He's the second baseman off the board around pick 30.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's my number 1 second baseman as well. I really like Albies a lot. I mean, it's hard to imagine, but he's not even 24 yet. He's going to be 24 by the time the season starts, but he's still super young. He's in an absolutely fantastic position. I think obviously this past year was a little bit of a disappointment because of the injury, but it's the first time that he's really missed significant time. I mean, he had 702 plate appearances in 19. He had 684 in 2018. He seems to progress every single year. I think that he'll end up, in the top part of that lineup this year. I think if he ends up anywhere between 1 and 5, I think it's gravy, because obviously 1 would be ideal, tons of runs, plate appearances, stolen bases. But even at 5, with the weaker back end of that lineup, although it's not even that weak, maybe there's more stolen bases there, RBI to go up. So any way you look at it, I really love Albie's 5-category contributor. Don't love the second base position, as you mentioned before. I mean, I definitely think there's good players there, but really love Albie's. I mean, it's a little bit of a stretch where he's going. Like, I think it's really hard for him to return value here unless he really hits the top end of his projection. But I do think that 30-20 is a possibility for him at some point in his career. I imagine he'll do something like that, which would be absolutely fantastic. So again, he's fine where he's going right now from a value perspective, but definitely the top first baseman, I think, for me.
Yeah, no, he's definitely a top the second base position for me as well. The injuries stunk, but still in 29 games, he's hitting 6 homers and stealing 3 bags is solid. The batting average was there the whole time around, and all the other stats, they lined up pretty well with career numbers, and that's without, I guess, the biggest non-career number we saw with him, striking out 24% of the time, up 8% from 2019. His high before that was 17% in 2018. So striking out a lot more and walking a lot less was interesting, because he's still solid batting average, did the other things we talked about. Steamer has him at 277, 26 and 14, 88 and 84. So definitely a still 5-category guy. And you mentioned that probably goes up even more if he moves up in the batting order, which should be, I would hope, in the cards for these guys. Hard hit rate dropped last year. I'd imagine that can be credited to the injury as well. So there's a lot I like about Ozzie Albies. You mentioned he's young. I agree with you. I think there's 30-20 upside with him. And if he does that at the second base position, that's just elite type production. I got him in the 3rd round at pick 3.4 in that NFBC 50 I've been doing right now. I'm a big Ozzie Albies fan. I figured in a draft and hold, if I don't have to worry about filling in with a bunch of filler second basemen later on, I'll be very happy with that. So getting Ozzie Albies was a priority of mine, and it happened. And I'll probably be trying to do getting him or this next guy as much as possible in drafts.
Yeah, he in my draft, he went pick 37. The latest he's gone, and I was pick 38.
Oh man, like, you almost got the gift.
Are you kidding me? This is going to happen.
But then you would have had to decide Ozzie or JT.
I would have gone Ozzie. I would have gone Ozzie because I know I'm going to get plenty of JTR throughout the season, right? But Ozzie in the 3rd round is just
good.
It would have been beautiful. But
all right, the third second baseman, though, this is kind of, I want to get Ozzie or this guy. It's pretty much what it comes down to. If I don't, it might be a waiting game for quite some time. And that is Whit Merrifield, going to pick 40 overall, second base outfield eligible, which is an interesting twist. You probably won't use him in the outfield very much, but then I said that last year. I'm pretty sure I actually ended up using him at times in the outfield just because he can hit for average, a little bit of pop, strong stolen base game, much better than I think a lot of people give him credit for, which is really nice with Whit. So what do you think on Whit going third second baseman, pick 40?
Yeah, I mean, boy, was I wrong on Whit last year. I mean, I was like, I thought it was time to get out. He did really well. I mean, I like him. Again, the stolen bases is the key. If he's able to maintain that stolen bases with the contact rate that he has, he's going to have a very good batting average. I mean, this year his contact rate actually went up, about 4%. So 85.5%, which is just, it's sickening. It's ridiculously good. His BABIP was lower than it's ever been in his career, but he still provided 282. The stolen bases were there, a little bit more pop than he usually does. And I think the Royals lineup, while it isn't necessarily like from a baseball perspective, it doesn't have a ton of good OBP guys. I think from a fantasy perspective, when you have Whit there, when you have Adalberto Mondesi, when you have a healthy Soler, when you have Sal Perez there, right? The front end of that lineup is not, it's not the best in baseball, but it certainly, has some fantasy contribution potential. Fantasy contributing percent. It's a new metric I'm working on. Look out for it.
FCP.
Yeah, exactly. And so again, there's going to be that season when the stolen bases dry up. You hope it's not this year, but it was very encouraging last year. 12 stolen bases in, essentially a third of a season is tremendous.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing for me is he has just enough pop to keep him relevant. 16 homers last year, Steamer has him projected for 16. I could see 15 plus. That seems reasonable for Whit Merrifield. Doesn't strike out a ton. He dropped it to 12.5% this past year. That was his lowest of his career. That's outstanding. And he was being more aggressive in the count when you look at his StatCast page. First pitch swinging, but then his overall swing rate was the same. So he's doing that very, very well. You mentioned the BABIP was lower than it's pretty much ever been. He was going up the middle a lot more. So that's one thing that will be interesting to watch next year. He's not pulling it nearly as much as he used to, but still very productive from a batting average perspective. And just getting on base in general, stealing bags. If we can get those walks back up some more and get on base for free, basically, would be really nice. But like you said, if he keeps running, that's going to be gold. Steamer's gone for 24 stolen bases. I could see 20 plus with him easily because the sprint speed's still there. He's never been a hard hit guy, so I don't want to hear people say, well, he doesn't barrel. He's never been that guy. He just never has. He's what people want Victor Robles to be. If you look at his overall profile, if Victor Robles can just hit the ball a little more consistently in the air and just consistently, period, barrel-wise, hard hit-wise, that's what Whit Merrifield is. So I'm a big fan of him as the third guy, and I wouldn't mind going there at all. So that'd be a fun one. The fourth second baseman is quite a surprise to me that he was this high. Like literally looking at this top 10 reminded me how bad the position is. Like I like Cavan Biggio quite a bit, and it's nice. He's got second base, third base, and outfield eligibility. That's premium. We've talked about in the past, great for OBP. Batting average has a little more to be desired. His aggressiveness at the plate is a discussion point at times. But picked 54 overall at a shallow position. Thoughts on Cavan Biggio?
Yeah, I mean, I understand why people want to grab him here. The stolen base home run potential is excellent. I think it's a little soon for me, though. I mean, I think I've kind of talked before about how I have some concerns. He's very patient, so in OBP he's awesome, but I really do think that he's a very low batting average guy. Even this year he hit 250, but his expected batting average was 215. So there was some luck involved there. We saw the barrel rate decline as well. Exit velocity declined. I highlighted this, I think I don't know if it's every time we talk about him, but his max exit velocity in 2 full seasons, his maximum exit velocity is 104.6 miles per hour. Like if you talk about, Alex Chamberlain's article about max exit velo and how that's a sign of, maybe some potential or some unearthed potential that a guy might have. It's the opposite with Biggio. He's relying on pulled fly balls for home runs, which, again, he's been able to do fairly consistently. But when you look at what he was able to produce last year, if you extrapolate that out to 600 plate appearances, for a full season, it's solid, but I don't know if I want to pay for that at this particular point. Like 20 home runs, 21 home runs and 14 stolen bases and 663 plate appearances is the projection with a 237 batting average. Like that's essentially Tommy Pham or Ramon Laureano going, after pick 100. So, I think there's better options at second base that will bring you more value. And I just think that the ceiling's capped a little bit on Biggio based on, just the batted ball data is not great.
Yeah, he's a tough one for me because I like the Baby Blue Jays. He's leading off for the Baby Blue Jays. So if he can walk, the runs are going to be there. Stolen bases will be there. Like it's all fun and dandy. But you mentioned a lot of the hard hit rates, the exit velocities, the barrels, all that stuff is very concerning to me. If he gets that figured out, it'd be great. I think we've said that pretty much, like you said, every time we talk about him. But leading off gives you a little to be desired. I still can't take him at this point in the draft. Like I looked at my second base rankings, I have him 10th at second base, and that might be a little too rough on the kid. But we're at the point of second base where you can make arguments for a lot of guys to move around here. Like the top three are the top three, and then it just kind of gets what tickles your fancy today. And Cavan Biggio, I got 10th just for the fact that I'm concerned if, say, he stops walking as much as he does, that batting average risk, he's going to do nothing for you. And that's a really scary predicament. I don't think he's going to stop walking because he's proven he's got that discipline throughout his entire career. But something to keep in mind if you want to play devil's advocate somewhere along the way. All right. The fifth second baseman off the board, second base outfield eligible. We knew he was going to get quite the hike. 2 years ago was one of the Rookie of the Year finalists for the Rays. This last year had another amazing year. Both season was so-so. Still a monster season. We're talking Brandon Lau, fifth second baseman off the board. Pick 71. I understand how good he is, some power, some speed, a little bit of everything. I don't know about you, Toby. I can't stomach him at pick 71, but maybe that's just me kind of with blinders on at times. What's your thoughts on Brandon Lowe?
Yeah, I just don't like the profile here. I mean, it's a high variance profile, a lot of swing and miss. Obviously, the guy can hit the ball. He can hit the ball really hard, but that's the calling card is that power. And I'm just not sure that I want to pay up that much for this. With his current approach, the batting average is capped. He doesn't have a ton of speed to offer either. And yeah, I don't see it here for Lau. I just don't think there's enough consistency yet in the profile for me to go after him at this point in time. So yeah, I'm gonna hang off. And we saw that like this year, right? I mean, he killed it starting off, and then during the playoffs and end of the year, it was brutal. And that's what it's going to be like owning him. And while I don't mind doing that when he's going at like pick 180 like he was last year, I actually minded it last year, but like I wouldn't mind that this year. I think it's a little much to go for him right now because you can get that same type of power with that same type of batting average with maybe even a little bit more speed later on in the draft. So I'd rather prioritize other people at that point.
Yeah, he's like a 4th or 5th outfielder profile later in the draft. So it's tough to go reaching right there. Good ball player, fun to root for, but like you said, he hits the ball extremely hard. It's crazy when you look at his StatCast metrics. It's 17.5% barrel this year, 16.3 last year, 43% hard hit rate for the little guy. Really impressive. Doesn't strike out too much, I guess. 26% is not great, but not bad. Walks over 11% of the time. Those are all nice. It's just, I'm with you. The overall profile has a lot to be desired. The aggressiveness of the plate went down this last year. Contact rate dropped. Well, it was the same as last year. It was still lower than you'd like at this point in the draft. So I'm with you. It's not something I'm running to get to. And in reality, there's not as much power from his teammate, but you get more stolen bases and probably a better batting average. And you can probably take him. Let me just do the quick search here because I'm really curious now that this.
Who are you looking for?
Joey Wendell goes a pick 301, and that's his teammate who doesn't have as much power. But if you look at the grand scheme, like I just took him in a draft. In that draft, so
you're just trying to pump yourself up for that draft pick.
No, I'm just trying to convince myself it was a good pick. But he doesn't have as much power, but it has stolen base, a little bit better batting average. If you want to wait that long, you can get certain things here and there. I guess Lau's better. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say that, but the profile can be found at other points in your draft, and like you said, and that's something that really needs to sink in. And I'd rather take a chance if you're going to go at pick 71 for second baseman. Why don't you take the 6th second baseman off the board at pick 74, Keston Hiura, who's been a mess. I'll attest to that. It's been bad.
That was such a great advertisement for drafting Keston Hiura. He's been a mess, but
if you want to play the ceiling card, we know Keston Hiura has a massive ceiling. It's a matter of can he start hitting more, like the fastball a little better potentially, or just
the fastball in the middle of the strike zone a little bit.
There's a lot of holes there, but it's like the talent. It's just so weird. Like we've talked about it. I talked to James Anderson about it. I talked with a lot of guys about it that watch prospects. And I remember seeing him even in college because he played down here against Cal Poly and Davis in the Big West. The dude was one of the best pure hitters in all of college baseball, like history. The guy could hit everything. And then all of a sudden, after his rookie year, he forgets how to hit. There's something not right maybe in his approach, or he did a tweak in mechanics. I don't know. But I'm hoping he figures it out because his overall hit tools, he's very good. He's just in a massive funk right now. So it's one of those, in an overall contest, I'd be tempted to get a share or two of Keston, depending on how many contests you're in, just for I know the ceiling could be huge if he figures it out, but massive risk. So what's your thoughts on Keston Hiura?
Yeah, before I get on to Keston Hiura, I just want to point out that you referred to Brandon Lau as a little guy. I just want to point that out. Brandon Little Guy Lowe. Lau.
Sorry.
Right? I love that. I was like, I've never thought of Brandon Lau as a little guy, but
I'm a really big guy. So
there you go. It's all relative, right? I thought that was like the best description of a player I've ever heard. So I just wanted to highlight that. Yeah, I mean, here
it's my caveman projections. The little guy.
Yeah. See, I put in little guy into my spreadsheet in my tool. I didn't get a dollar value. I don't know what's happening. Something's wrong with the process.
You get cents, not dollars.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you touched on it. I mean, the swing and miss is just massive. I mean, it's just absolutely massive. He had the worst in-zone contact rate of any hitter in baseball, 67.9%, right? So we talked about how bad Brandon Lau's contact rate is. Brandon Lau's overall contact rate is the same as Keston Hiura's contact rate on pitches inside the zone, right? And it's also, if you look at fastballs inside the zone, I think we looked at this earlier on, fastballs inside the zone for Keston Hiura, let me just look here.
It's bad.
It's 58.7%.
So worse than his overall contact. Worse than his overall fastball down the
middle. It's literally the worst contact rate in all of baseball. 58.7%. There's not a player in baseball who has a 58.7%. I mean, that's like Joey Gallo is like, are you kidding me? You know? And so, I mean, obviously that's a huge concern, but you also look at the projection and it's 255, 30 home runs, 10 stolen bases. And if he does all those things, the counting stats are going to be there. So again, I think you were right on. The ceiling is great. The floor is also very low. Chances are he probably ends up in the middle, and he's still, you know, again, I'd rather maybe take a risk on him in this spot than allow, because that's the stolen bases are there. The power is similar. Maybe there's a little bit more batting average risk, but we know how batting average risk goes. I mean, the batting averages are going to fluctuate, especially for guys with this type of profile. So that for me is, you know, I'm probably not going after him in the draft just because it's a little risky at this point in time, depending on what my roster looks like ahead of it, you know, and I don't want to take that much of a potential batting average suck, you know, at this point in the draft, but I can definitely see why people would maintain that interest. And again, he could be so good. So, you know, probably not for me, but I can totally understand it. And at least you can survive with the home run speed combination.
So what I'm hearing with your description there is there's only one place to go, and that's up. So that's good. No, I'm just kidding. But as a guy that doesn't
hit the bottom, Bubba.
Yes, we've hit bottom. We're at the 6th second baseman. We've already hit rock bottom. So we know you're not a Vlad fan. It's one of those, though, if he stops hitting more ground balls and maybe he starts elevating the ball more, we could see a ceiling. And then Keston, you could be playing for a ceiling. If you had to take two, I know you probably don't take either. If you had to take one of the two, which one would you rather have?
I say them again. Sorry, I was distracted by Justin over here telling me that I'll never get Hiura because I'm going to draft 8 pitchers in Real Muto in the first 9 rounds. So Hiura or who?
Or Vladito.
I'd rather have Hiura. I think I'd rather have Hiura.
Okay, that's fair. I think
probably. I mean, it's so tough. I mean, the thing that's challenging, I think, is Hiura. You get him, and he has a 220 batting average. That's hard to overcome.
Yeah.
Vladito, he's not hurting you anywhere except for speed. So maybe it would be Vladito, but it's a good comparison. I'll just not draft either of them.
Yeah, I knew you would. And that's why I said, yeah, you have to. No, that's good. But let's go to the 7th second baseman off the board. I have him as my 4th second baseman off the board because I'm buying a bounce back. He was banged up a lot last year, and I just don't see as big a drop off as we saw last year from Ketel Marte. Hitting 287 is actually pretty good. We'll take that. BABIP was lower, but he still struck out only 10.8% of the time. That was great. Walk rate dropped a ton. Something to keep in mind. Didn't run at all, but again, banged up. So I'm going to kind of take a grain of salt approach with that. I still think there's a lot of power in that bat, and there's more speed with the solid counting stats elsewhere. So I think I have him at 4th overall. He's the 7th second baseman off the board at pick almost 90. How do you view Ketel Marte this year? Are you staying off of him?
Yeah, he's a bit of a conundrum for me. It's so hard because he had, career year, right? Don't buy the career year. Not that I don't buy it. I mean, I think it was supported by a lot of things, but regression comes for us all, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's just one of these situations where I actually drafted him in my first draft. I got him at pick 84, I want to say. No, that wouldn't make sense. 83. Pick 83. And I was really debating. I was like, do I go after him? Jeff McNeil actually went before he did. Brian Slack, friend of the pod, drafted McNeil a couple picks beforehand. And I was thinking, like, do I go McNeil? Do I go Do I go Ketel Marte right here? Or do I wait and get Altuve coming back around? And I think that's a conversation I'm going to have a lot. And that's kind of a little bit of my approach to second base right here. Marte's profile is really stellar. The contact rate was still great last year. There's stuff going on in the chat. I don't know what's going on in the chat over here, but there's the contact rate was excellent. He didn't lose that at all. The approach at the plate was still really solid. So there's that high floor that I really like. The batting average is going to be good. I think it's really difficult for him not to have a good batting average. So the question is, do you think the batted ball quality is going to come back? And I think it will. I mean, he's still got that high max exit velo, right? And so he's still got that potential. The barrel rate was higher. It actually wasn't. The thing about him is the barrel rate per batted ball event wasn't actually that high the previous year, but he just put so many balls in play that the actual volume is there. And I think that's much more the approach. And I think this is what I thought last year heading into drafts, which is he's a 20 to 25 home run guy, 5 to 10 stolen bases. But I think the batting average is there. He's going to play every single day. He's going to be in the middle of that Arizona Diamondbacks lineup, which is not going to be great. Hopefully it won't be one of the worst lineups. But I think just with volume, with that batting average, I think there's a really solid floor there. So I don't mind taking him because I'm not too concerned that he's going to hurt me anywhere in particular. So really like the profile here. Not wholly convinced that, we're going to see a return to glory for the batted ball quality, but I do think that the batted ball quality will be good enough so that home run total will be 20 to 25, which is more than enough at second base with the stolen bases and the batting average and the counting stats he should provide.
Yeah, I'm with you. He's not going to go back to that career year we saw, but I'm looking at a 25-plus home run guy, like you mentioned, with 10-plus steals, awesome average, middle of that Arizona lineup that not great, but still I think there's something to like there. Varshao becomes something we think he can be. You still got Peralta, who's a batting average guy to get on base in front of him, hopefully, if they move the lineup around. You got Christian Walker, who's still very talented. So there's some pieces there that maybe they make a move or two. We'll see. They've made a lot of interesting moves to begin with to sell guys like Starling Marte. That's a whole other podcast. But I think there's a lot to like here. And the floor alone with some upside is why I have him over question marks like Biggio, Lau, and Hira at the second base position. So that's kind of where I'm looking at that is I agree. I don't see the monster season we saw a couple of years ago, but I see a much better season and get him around pick 90. So now you're talking end of round 6. Maybe he drops into round 7 at a very shallow position. That becomes more of a stomachable pick to make at second base. All right.
Speaking of Peralta, just to add, I don't know if you saw the video of him,
my God,
with like the 25-pound weight or whatever it was, and just flicking it with his wrist and I was like, why can't you hit more home runs?
I was about to say that exercise should be getting that quick wrist muscle to just pop them out. But
like, stop hitting 50% plus ground balls. Get a little pop, dude. Come on.
I hope the next exercise involves a broomstick swinging it straight up in the air over and over again. But something along those lines, muscle memory, something ... But yeah, the 8th second baseman off the board, Max Muncy, first base, second base, third base eligible, around pick 100. This is a guy I never draft. I never like. I just never have anything good to say about him. I understand he walks a lot. He hit for 35 home runs back-to-back years. He's got 30 homer upside. There's just something about Max Muncy, not the blue and the white that he wears, not that. There's just something about Max Muncy.
Definitely not that.
It's definitely not that. That doesn't do it for me. So I never own or roster Max Muncy. So I'll let you have the floor. Do you have anything good? Like, I know you usually like Max Muncy. So what's your thoughts on Max Muncy?
Yeah, I mean, I normally don't draft Max Muncy where he's going just because the profile isn't necessarily what I'm looking for. Like, the batting average isn't going to be great. The stolen bases really aren't going to be there either. But I do think it's a pretty solid floor profile, right? I mean, he's got that multi-position eligibility, which is really nice. And he gets on base. He's going to score a ton of runs. He plays every day, or he has been. He did this season even against lefties. Like, he's very good. And the reason why he wasn't that as good this year is because the BABIP was so unbearably low. But again, he's on the wrong side of 30 now, and he doesn't have that batting average and speed. So I just don't see myself taking him really. And that's not to like discount the importance of home runs and runs and RBI, but again, just at this point in time, I I don't feel great about it, but I can see why people would take that. Like if you built a really nice batting average floor and stolen base floor, or not floor, foundation, batting average and stolen bases, and you're just kind of looking for a guy that's Mr. Consistent, is going to get you runs, RBI, and home runs, then I think he could be a solid choice with maybe a little position flexibility. So I think that's fine, but I probably won't be getting him in too many places. I was hoping he'd be penalized more for that batting average, but people are too smart now.
Yeah, no, he's going much higher than I expected him to be. I expected maybe 140-ish, give or take, or something like that. So I was very surprised by that as well. Batting average, he's always, well, not always, but he seems to be lower than what people really expect from him. Like last year was really bad, but even before that, 240-ish or something. His steamer's 232. So it's still not out of this world great. He's getting older, like you said. He's getting banged up a lot more, it seems like, just in the last couple of years. The Dodgers always have a lot of options if something goes wrong. So there's just so many question marks that I just avoid it. You can find power at different spots. The batting average hit's just something I don't want to take if I can avoid it, especially with some of the guys earlier we talked about and some of the next group of second basemen we're going to talk about where the average is much, much better. And we can get popped somewhere else if you need to. I don't really want to go to second base looking for an average dump where you can find that later in the outfield or at certain corner infield positions, but they offer you something else. Like I want to maximize each position for something good. If you're not getting stolen bases at second base, at least get some batting average. He doesn't really help you either, and that kind of hurts me as my philosophy when looking at it. The ninth second baseman off the board, the New York Mets, second base, third base, outfield eligible, pick 101. Mr. Jeff McNeil is getting up the board here last year. If you look at his overall numbers, a lot of it resembles that 2018 season where he hit like 3 to 4 home runs, not the 2019 powerful surge season. Still had 4 homers last year in 60 games, so he's going to probably hit you 10 to 12 homers in a full season, but not the massive year he had in 2019, but still a solid average. Sets the table for the Mets. What's your tape on Jeff McNeil?
Yeah, I really like McNeil a lot. I think with the price, you're getting a little bit of a discount from last year. I just think that the batting average is going to be there. He's a great batting average guy. The power is a little bit of a question mark, but he's one of these guys who you draft him and you're pretty confident he's not really going to hurt you, because he's going to contribute that batting average. If he gets between 15 and 25 home runs, and if he gets between 5 and 10 stolen bases, right? With that batting average and with that Mets lineup, which I think is going to be very, very good next year. I mean, it's already been a good lineup. I think it's going to get even better next year.
Especially with JTR there.
With JTR there, maybe Lindor there, you never know what's going to happen. And so with all of that, I mean, I think my only concern with him is plate appearances. I think he's obviously going to play every day, but the question is where in that lineup does he hit? Because they had him hitting 7th or 8th, for a part of last season. And so if he's in that 1 or 2 spot, I mean, that's gravy. That's golden. He's hitting 7th or 8th, a little bit of a concern. But again, I think the skills are enough to carry that. And so I do feel pretty good about McNeil. I think he'll be one of my more owned second basemen this year, just because I like that profile. It's one where the ceiling is pretty high because that batting average, and the floor is pretty low because of that batting average and because he does a little bit of everything. And so I do like that pick. I like that pick a lot.
Yeah, he's a very strong accumulator. Gets a little bit of everything. The steamer projections kind of surprised me a bit. They give him the 19 homers, which maybe steeper than most want to give him. 8 stolen bases, not bad. But only a 285 average, which would be the lowest in his career by a long shot. Last year's 311 was the lowest of his career. So that would be interesting to see how steamer plays out next year. Still 285, 19, 8 steals, 85 runs, or 87 runs, 74 RBIs. It'll still be a strong season, helping in all 5 categories. So I don't hate it. I've never been all in on McNeil, but I understand solid floor. So no complaining from me at all when it comes to Jeff McNeil. It's just it's curious when you look at his overall, his ISOs, his contact rates, like barrel rates almost identical, hard hit rates even lower than 2018. Like the comparisons to 2018 and 2020, they're very tight. Very, very tight. So it's interesting to see where that power actually comes from. Because I think I've said it too many times on this show, but In 2019, the second half of the year, more home runs, less batting average. First half, no home runs, basically all the batting average. So it seems like he has one approach or the other. He hasn't really combined them yet. So it'll be interesting to see where that all comes to fruition, maybe in 2021. All right. Last but not least, the 10th second baseman off the board in the NFBC Draft Champions drafts. Seattle Mariners second base outfield eligible, Dylan Moore, pick 107. Moore had a monster season for the Mariners after an okay 2019, bad batting average, but you saw a little power, a little speed. This past year, K rate dropped 6%. Batting average jumped to 255, showed some more power, still 12 stolen bases in 38 games, 8 home runs. Outstanding stuff. And the projections, batting average is still dreadful, but power's there, speed's there. He's going to get on base for the Mariners, but that batting average is a massive hit. It's Max Muncy-esque, minus the power, but more steals. So what's your thoughts on Dylan Moore being the 10th second baseman off the board?
Yeah, Moore's definitely interesting. You think about the fact he's had 441 plate appearances in his career, and he has 23 stolen bases and 17 home runs. That's great. I think it's just it is very interesting. I mean, he's kind of the combination of those 2 years. The 222 batting average seems pretty low to me. He had a 33% strikeout rate in 2019, and so that's probably weighing in some. But if you look at the actual contact metrics, he had a 74.6% contact rate in 2019, and then a 74.3% contact rate this year. So he actually had a better contact rate in the year that he had a 6% higher, swinging strike rate or strikeout rate. And so that doesn't really line up to me. So I think 2020 is probably a better reflection of, who he is and maybe how good he is. We know the Mariners are super aggressive on the bases, so that could continue. I think my only concern a little bit is that, he's older. He's not, he's 28 already, which again is not old, but he's not, I think, a part of their future moving forward. At least I don't think so. And so I do have a little bit of a concern about, him getting moved somewhere else where I think his value would go down considerably, but I can certainly see taking a chance on him right here. It's not necessarily a premium pick. It is pretty high up there, but it's a lot of speed and a lot of power combination and possibility. So it's an interesting one. I think I'm going to have to delve in maybe a little bit deeper because gains in max exit velo and exit velo overall. The barrel rate obviously was nice. Lowered the launch angle hard hit rate up as well. So a lot of good trends there. And the walk rate is solid too. So the O swing's really good. So maybe I'm selling myself on Dylan Moore.
Contact rate's good. He did a lot of things well.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's interesting, and I love the power speed upside. It's if he can hit 250, he's got a 20-20 upside. He really does, yeah. which is crazy to think about at pick 100 at second base of all positions. It's an interesting dilemma to have. Maybe the floor is pretty bad. Maybe he hits rock bottom on us. He could get traded too, which is very dealing Mr. Dipoto could make things interesting. The Mariners are his fourth franchise since 2015. He's been traded all throughout the minor leagues. So it's either because he's really coveted or he's not that important. We shall see. But
man, am I going to own a lot of Dylan Moore this year, Bubba?
Yeah, I don't know, because we're going to talk about some guys on pick 11 through 20 that could change that. But Dylan Moore is interesting. I'm not going to knock it. I think he could give a guy like Ketel Marte some even comps maybe. That could be a fun one to see at the end of the year. A Ketel Marte, Dylan Moore comparison could be something to think about. But let's talk about a couple longer, our 11 through 20 guys we like. You got Jose Altuve, Jonathan VR, Mike Moustakas, Tommy Edman, Jake Cronenworth, Nick Solak, Nick Madrigal, Gavin Lux, Jurickson Profar, Andres Jimenez. Some very interesting names with, let's say, a lot of question marks for some of them. But who's one of the guys for sure that you're looking at here in picks 11 through 20?
Yeah, one guy that jumps out immediately is Altuve. Obviously, it's been a massive fall from grace for him, and he really struggled during the season. But, if you combine his, I think we've talked about this before, if you combine his his regular season with his postseason where he hit 375 with 5 home runs, you get a 250 batting average, which isn't necessarily great, but again, you're expecting him to finish higher than a 250 at this point. You have close to 40 runs. You have, 25 RBI. I think in 10 home runs, right? In about maybe a little bit more than a third of a season. And so the concern I think I have for Altuve is the stolen bases at this point. How much are those going to be? He did have 2 stolen bases in the shortened season, but he also got caught 5 times, I think, including twice in the postseason with no stolen bases. Small sample sizes, but he's getting older. The stolen bases are drying up. I think it's hard to project him for more than 10. I think even projecting him for 10 seems a little steep at this point. So, that's the only concern. But again, you're getting a huge discount. And I think we've seen the ceiling before. And I think 2021 will probably be a kinder season to him just because there won't be as much pressure as 2020 coming off the controversy. So again, I think I'll probably have some Altuve just because I think the floor is pretty high. And I think the ceiling we've seen before.
Yeah, I'm with you. Pick 112 is a really strong spot for him. The floor is outstanding, as you mentioned. If fans are in the stands, that still could be interesting, but I don't think there'll be that many to affect him in 2021. And that I'm actually surprised with the postseason that he had. I thought he'd get a bump. Like we saw a lot of the mock drafts during the playoffs, he was falling. I figured once we got into real drafts after the playoffs, we'd see him move up a little more. 11 second baseman off the board is not nearly what you'd expect from Jose Altuve, a guy that was a 2nd or 3rd round pick last year. Like that is a fall from grace. So I think that's one of those guys you could look at. I think I mentioned it on this show, if not a different show, that Ryan Bloomfield a week or so ago started his first, I think it was a draft champions or an FBC 50, I think probably draft champions. And he showed like his first 7 or 8 picks. And if this was 2019's offseason, it would look like the greatest draft in the history of baseball because all these guys have been falling. He just kept taking them. So Altuve just definitely fits that mold. So it'll be very interesting to see how that turns around for him. My first guy, he's first base, second base, shortstop eligible. He's going to pick 163, and I'm going to have way too much Jake Cronenworth this year if he keeps being drafted at that point in time. I know some people think I'm crazy. I understand he slowed down the second half of the season, but the fact that he still hit 285, 4 homers, and 3 stolen bases in 54 games, walked 9.4% of the time, struck out only 15.6%. He's always had a low strikeout rate and a decent walk rate. He's hit for a good batting average off and on in the minors. That's kind of been one of those fluctuating parts. But the last couple of years, it's been pretty solid. And he's got the power speed throughout the minors. And that's something that I really, really like. In 2019 alone, 10 homers, 12 steals, hit 334 in AAA. I don't expect 334, but I'll take 285 right now. Projections have him for 273, 11, and 11. I think that's a good floor. I think it's actually can be better than that. He had a 10.5% barrel rate last year with a almost 43% hard hit rate. Again, the walk rate and the strikeout rates I like a ton. There's just a lot to like about Cronenworth, and if they keep hitting him between like Tatis and Machado like they were for a while, you give him a full season of that. I think part of the slumps last year was the growing pains. They still let him hit versus lefties, which was big. They moved him around to keep him in the lineup. He's just got a really good hit tool. His contact rates were pretty darn strong. His zone contact last year was almost 90% in his short tenure. Even his chase, he only chased 19% of the time. That shows really, really strong plate discipline, especially for a 26-year-old guy in his first stint in the major leagues. So I like him a lot. A 44.8% ground ball rate and only an 18.9% fly ball rate. If he can tweak that at all, it would be tremendous. Obviously, Captain Obvious stuff there. But that shows you how big of a growth he can make. Even with all that, still hitting the way he hit, I think is great. And that speed he brings at pick like 155 or whatever it was, 160, I think it's tremendous. So I'm going to have a lot of Jake Cronenworth at that point. I know I'm really high on him, higher than most. I have him like as my 5th second baseman off the board. But that's probably way too high for many. I get it. But I really am a believer in what he can do. And he's still young and developing. If he can get it to click, he's a 2020 type guy. Basically, at pick 150, that's 10th round in a 15-team league. That is outstanding to me.
Yeah, I think you might have convinced me. I like Cronenworth a lot. I love the skills, like you mentioned. I mean, exceptional plate discipline, exceptional contact skills. He's got the multi-position eligibility as well. You know, and I think what I was most concerned about was kind of, there was a lot of skills and not a lot of production necessarily. You know what I'm saying? Like, but if you look at it, he had 15 barrels last year, and only 4 of them went for home runs, right? Typically you'd see that over 50%. So he was probably unlucky there. I'd be interested to see some like expected home run metrics, things like that, for him. I might have to check that out for Max Freeze. You know, he only stole, 3 bases, but again, he's got that speed and he gets on base a ton. So there's definitely a lot to like, and the batting average is going to be high. And I just
if you miss on Jeff McNeil, here's your mini Jeff McNeil.
It's like a mini Jeff McNeil with maybe a little bit more pop too.
Better lineup for sure.
Better lineup, but he's going to be batting later in the lineup probably.
Let me double check. I just went off his page. He was hitting early in the lineup last year, at least most.
Because you moved
around a lot.
You got Tatis leading off probably. You got Grisham leading off. You got Tatis batting second. Machado batting third.
He batted
Osmer
6th or 7th a lot. Yeah, it was 6th or 7th.
Then you have Myers batting 5th, and then you have Pham, if healthy, batting 6th. So he's probably capped out at 7.
Last year he hit 5th through 7th most of the time, 5th, 6th, or 7th.
Yeah, which isn't awful, because opportunity for a lot of RBI, potentially stolen bases, right? And then you got Nola. It's just like such a deep lineup that they're going to have there. So I could see it. I could definitely see it. I can totally understand your interest, and maybe I'm a little bit more interested after hearing you talk about that than I would have been before, because I think a lot of what he didn't do last year was results oriented. It wasn't skills oriented. It was results oriented, and I think that's where you can get some value. So certainly very interesting guy to consider, especially where's he going? 150?
Yeah, I got it right here. 163.
163.
So that's round 11.
Round 11 coming up in my draft. Bubba.
Yeah. He's interesting to me because you don't want to wish injury on anybody, but say somebody gets hurt towards the top of that order, like Trent Grisham, then all of a sudden you'd imagine Cronenworth would be one of the favorites to slide right on in there. And
are you saying that you want Trent Grisham to get injured?
No, because I like Trent Grisham a lot too. That I guess it shows you how deep this roster is. You almost want it's the ill-dreaded. Can you back Cronenworth or Grisham? Pick your poison. 1 9th and 1 1st, with no DH now. That could be tremendous. Can you one of those two go there? But that's a whole other discussion.
Do you have any worry about playing time? Because Profar actually was pretty good. I know he was playing in the outfield. He'd bat 9th. Nola bats 8th.
Well, I have a surprise for you. Profar, if you look at roster resource, is a free agent this year.
Oh, is he?
Yes, because if you go to roster resources, Padres roster, there is no Jurickson Profar. They have Cronenworth batting 7th, playing second base. That's why I listen to this podcast for breaking news like that. All right, I'm digging Cronenworth a little bit more. I like it. He's good. I mean, the skills are just like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Look at this guy. My problem is I want Polanco so badly. Jorge Polanco. I think he's such a good value. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that because people are going to listen to this and then draft him in front of me in my draft Champions League. That should be a rule. If you listen to a podcast and you're drafting with the person, you're not allowed to take advantage of that information. I like that rule. It'll never happen, but I like that rule. If you're listening about this and you're in one of my drafts and you're thinking about taking him, that is pure evil. That is pure evil. I put this content out here. Well, actually, Bubba's the one who's putting this Jake Cronenworth content out here, but we put this out here for you guys, out of the kindness of our hearts, and then you're going to use it against us in a draft. That's why I found out last year doing those 2 listener leagues. It's brutal trying to draft in those leagues. But who's your other guy? Pick 11 through 20. We have actually the same player. So why do you like Tommy Edman so much? Well, Tommy Edman, I mean, it's really just a situation where it's the profile. I mean, Colton Wong's gone, so he's the leadoff hitter. I mean, he's the natural leadoff hitter. He's
much better. He's a good OBP guy. He's a switch hitter, so you don't platoon him left, right. So he's going to get a ton of plate appearances if he's healthy. You know, the skill profile is great. You know, a lot of contact, good plate discipline. You know, the batted ball quality isn't great, but he can make up a little bit of that with just compiling with the number of plate appearances that he gets. The Cardinals lineup isn't the greatest in the world, but, you know, they're top of the lineup. You know, DeYoung and Goldschmidt, and I think Dylan Carlson will probably be in there as well. You know, I don't think that's awful. So I think you're looking at a guy who can put up like 80 runs, 60 RBI, 15-15, you know, with a batting average that'll be better than league average. And I think at the spot that you're getting him with the positional flexibility and the potential higher ceiling because of the stolen base totals. I mean, he doesn't have 600 plate appearances yet in the big leagues, and I think he has 17 stolen bases. So he's definitely a guy who'd go 15-20, which would be fantastic at this spot right here.
Yeah, I like Tommy Edmonds a lot. You mentioned pretty much all of it, and I love that eligibility: second base, third base, shortstop, outfield. He's going to be playing every day, like you said, leading off most likely. He has kind of had a down year last year. I think that's what kind of dropped him off, as people were really high on him going into last year. The Cardinals had a weird year. Like, we keep saying everything's like a case-by-case basis because of the COVID stuff. The Cardinals missed so much time and played so many doubleheaders. These guys had to be exhausted, like absolutely exhausted trying to play. I know it's a game that we say, oh, it's just a game. It's still a lot of work for these guys. Like, don't play it off as it's not that difficult. So they had a ton of doubleheaders. He still played in 52 of the 60 games. So he was out there a lot, and they were traveling a ton without days off. Had to be a little tired. I got to give him a little benefit of the doubt there. And I think this year should be a lot better, barring something crazy. So I think the Cardinals in general, you can get a lot of discounts. That's why I think Goldie, we talked about him last week. I know the power numbers dropped off, but he could be big. You got Edmonds. I love Dylan Carlson coming in there. There's a lot of interesting ways to look at the Cardinals coming up this year.
Yeah, and their stolen bases, I think, you know, really dried up across the board. And I do think that what you mentioned about the schedule and just physically it being very difficult on them as a team may have played a part in there. So, because I think they went from being one of the teams that stole the most in the previous year. Part of it is personnel, but they had pretty much the identical personnel that they had in previous years. So I think the stolen bases will return.
Yeah, it will be quite interesting. All right, 21 and beyond, who are some of the later round targets you are looking at second base? Because the one thing I will mention before you get going is there's some interesting later round options, especially if you're looking to fill certain categories. Usually your middle infield will be shortstop already, so you're probably not going to take a lot of these guys from middle infield. But there's some conversations to be had, to say the least. So who are some of the guys you're looking at?
For sure. So I'll go one by one just to give you an opportunity, just in case we have similar guys. ADP, I think right now is around 322. Starlin Castro. Again, he's I think he's over 30 at this point in time in his career, but I really liked him heading into last year. He's in a really good situation with the Nationals. He's going to be batting. He's essentially going to be, I think, probably in the top two there, right? You're going to have Eaton's gone. So you're going to have Turner leading off, and him batting second, maybe followed by Soto. So I really like that spot. And, he makes a ton of contact, plate discipline's okay, was elevating the ball a little bit more. So I think he's just going to be the type of guy who hits 280 with 20 home runs, maybe a little bit of stolen bases, 80-80 or something like that, just totally basic, but really nice. And with the ceiling for more, especially in the batting average department. So I just think going where he's going, he's the same guy that he was. He just got injured heading into last year, and he's down 100 spots in ADP. So I really like that.
Yeah, a big Starlin Castro fan as well. I think he's a phenomenal best ball pick if you want to have him on your roster for one of our draft and hold, even like you guys are talking about, because you might not need to take him in a regular draft. As like I said, you might not need a middle infielder or whatnot. And he's so late, he might be a free agent on your waiver wire. But I think he's a phenomenal choice, as you mentioned, and a heck of a deal at his point in time. One of the guys I like, he's going to the 21st second baseman. He's second base and third base eligible at pick 206, and that's Gene Segura. Projecting right now to hit fifth in the Phillies lineup, a very good Phillies lineup. Hit 266 last year, 7 homers, 2 steals. Prior to that, though, he had double-digit homers and steals for 4 straight seasons. He had 20 or more stolen bases each year from 2013 to 2018. Steamer has him for 280, 16, and 10, plus 77 and 74. The strikeout rates last year at 20.7 was the worst by far in his career. So that could be something to monitor. But I think getting out of the East full-time will help a lot with his overall offensive production. And just a full year in Philly. He's had a couple years in Philly. But last year's kind of an influx with some of the moves they made. Reese was playing bad. JT was huge, obviously, and he won't be there.
Obviously.
Yeah, but he won't be there anymore. I'd be shocked if he's back. But I think Gene Segura, he's one of those guys, if you look at projections and what you can believe in with him, kind of a down year last year, but still in 54 games, 7 homers, 2 stolen bases. Maybe he sneaks into a 15 to 20 homers, maybe close to 10 steals in that run. Very doable for Gene Segura. And at pick past 200, like a potential 20-10 type guy or 15-10 type guy with a solid batting average and helping you. He's basically a 5-category contributor at pick 200 in the grand scheme of things at second base. So I think he's a nice later round value. If you miss out on some of the early guys, you just want to wait at second base, I don't mind Gene Segura. Who's another guy for you?
So the next guy I have is actually I think a guy that you like a lot. Maybe I'll skip him just to see if you have him. Do you have him on there too? You do? Okay, I'll give him to you because I know you're on him first. I have Jonathan Scope on here. Depending on where he ends up, obviously, I believe he's a free agent this year. Let's see. He's going to be a free agent this year, but he was really good for the Tigers last year. 278 batting average, 8 home runs, and only 177 plate appearances. And so he's kind of the guy that he has always been. And he had a rough 2019, I think, with the Twins, just because he didn't really get as much of an opportunity. But he kind of showed that he's still that guy. He's 29, so, still in his prime. So depending on where he lands, if he gets an opportunity to play every day, like returning to Detroit or something like that, where he's going in drafts, I think, for a power hitting second baseman who's not going to hurt you in batting average, I think that's solid.
Yeah, he's always an interesting one for sure. The guy you were mentioning that I like later in drafts, I think could be a massive upside. He's picked 300 basically, 29th second baseman off the board. Should play every day for the Seattle Mariners now that he's got traded from San Diego, and that's Ty France. I love the plate discipline with Ty France. He hit 305 last year in 43 games. Throughout the minors, he's been like a 280 to 300 hitter, so that's been a legit consistent thing. There's definite pop there. In AAA, in 2019 at 27 homers, so he combined for 34 that year. He combined for 22 the year before. The powers continued to develop with him. Last year, only 4 homers. I think that's a lot because you saw his fly ball rate drop tremendously last year. Ground ball rate dropped to 38.5%, which is nice, but fly ball dropped to 19.2%. Get the fly ball to go somewhere because he pulls the ball a ton. That can work in his benefit. A strong barrel rate of 8.7%. That was an increase from 5.9%. Keep working on that. The hard hit rate dropped a bunch as well. So there's a few question marks, but overall his contact skills are great. Just the overall package of what Ty France can do at the plate, batting average-wise, and the upside for power at pick 300 in a Seattle lineup that is sneaky interesting. They're very young and very interesting. He should be hitting towards the middle of that lineup. I think there's a lot to like there if you're looking for a late power source at the position. Not going to help you a ton in steals, but decent average, good power, help you in the basically a 4-category guy. I like Ty France a lot. What would you like to add about Mr. France?
No, I mean, I think you covered it. I mean, he's like it's interesting, it's like they traded him after Jake Cronenworth kind of blew up, and it's a similar profile. I think Cronenworth is certainly better, but just solid all around, solid plate discipline, above league average contact rate, and he's got decent max exit velo. He's got decent average exit velocity. The hard hit rate wasn't that stupendous, but we know he's got it. And so you have a guy who if he puts it all together could be a really strong contributor. Even when you look at his projection right now that Steamer has him at, he's projected for slightly more than 400 plate appearances. And I do think that he'll be an everyday guy for them. They want to see what they have in him. And so if that's the case and you bump that up to 600 plate appearances, you're talking about, 20 plus home runs, closer to 5 stolen bases, 70-70 with a batting average that won't necessarily hurt you. So I think where he's going in drafts, he's definitely a nice upside play and a guy who can compile with plate appearances playing every day in Seattle. In an improving lineup, like you mentioned, like an interesting and improving. I really like what they're doing there. I was down on Dipoto pretty hardcore, especially living in Seattle and the Seattle area for a number of years in Washington and following them. I just felt like he was always trading and didn't really have a plan. But I feel like you can't really have handled the rebuild better than he has, where they've got these just strong hitters coming up. They maybe don't have the pitching, but we know that they are starting to develop a track record of improving pitchers throughout the minors and kind of turning guys into interesting folks. And so I'm really intrigued to see what they do this year. I think it could be a big year for them.
Well, and the other thing is you're doing it like the Blue Jays did and the Cubs did and kind of the Rays, but develop the young bats that are affordable and pay for your pitching. That's fine. Totally. You can do that, and that they're going to do that pretty well here pretty soon. So, like that would have been a fun one to get, like Drew Smyly and Charlie Morton instead of the Braves. Why didn't they go there? That could have been fun.
Not yet. Next year or the year after that is when our favorite pitcher, Drew Smyly, will go over there with his 2 Cy Young awards in hand.
I can't believe people took you seriously on that too. You had the asterisk and everything.
I know. He's going to get 1 Cy Young vote. Drew Smyly is going to get 1 Cy Young vote. It'll be like 10th place. But he's going to get it. And
that's Toby burying the lead. Apparently, he's got a Cy Young vote next year. So
I do. Baseball Writers Association of America. I'm not really part of that, unfortunately.
Any other long shot or later round guys like your boy John Birdie's there if you want steals. Garrett Hampson's always interesting because if you have a place, it's great, but he's right there with Ryan McMahon.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's the thing about this guy like Hampson right there is like, that's the spot where I feel pretty good about taking a Hampson, right? At 270 with what he's been able to do. If they move Arenado, then maybe the spot opens up, at second base or, in the outfield. Maybe they get a Brain there, or whatever in Colorado. So I definitely think that he's a guy. I mean, I think there's a lot of interesting later guys. I mean, Ryan McMahon has fallen considerably, 80 spots after a tough year. But again, it's a shortened season and he's a young guy and development isn't linear, right? Tommy La Stella at 293. I mean, talk about a really excellent profile. If he returns to the A's or he goes somewhere and he's the leadoff hitter with that plate discipline, with that contact approach and a little bit of pop, like he's an excellent guy to add. Robinson Cano, don't draft him.
Yeah.
Luis Arias, again, you're not paying like a top 200 pick for him this year. Now he's going around 350 and he was just injured. We know he's going to hit for batting average. Luis Urias, again, he's going to play every day. He's got multi-position eligibility. You're paying a pick 400 for him. Like he could always take a step. Nico Goodrum, 433, everybody's favorite multi-position eligibility guy that, it never really hurts you anywhere. Adam Frazier, 484. So I think Chad Pinder, I really like Chad Pinder this year, and David Bodie. So I think there's a lot of like guys to take a stab on later on in drafts that could be something, and I think it'll be really key, like to be able to pounce. I mean, Pinder is a guy that I've just been waiting for him to get an opportunity to play every day because he hits the ball really, really hard. And he did that the second half of last year in particular and in the playoffs. And you just want him to get that chance to play every day and not just be the platoon guy against lefties. But we'll see. We'll see if that ever happens in Oakland. At least I'm sure at some point in time if he's good enough, he'll get that opportunity. But so there are some interesting names. How about you? I'm sorry, I kind of hogged it there.
No, you hit some of them, but like Colton Wong, depending on where he signs at 343, could be a steal for him. That's a big one. Hanser Alberto, I'm really not sure why he's going to 365. His batting average is tremendous. A little bit of pop as well. I'm sure he doesn't like help you a ton in power and speed, but hitting early in that Baltimore lineup, they'll score a lot of runs. That's an interesting one at 365. Luis Garcia had a nice little run there in his rookie campaign with Washington at 407. He has my attention at that point in the draft. And you mentioned the trades for Garrett Hampson. If that all works out for Hampson, Brendan Rodgers at 463 could be someone to take a stab at later in drafts too. So there is a lot of interesting guys, and you can kind of make arguments for a few more, but I'm not going to go farther down the list. There's a lot to – it almost makes you wonder if you don't want to get one of the top second basemen, you just say screw it and wait. That's going to be an interesting draft strategy going forward. But let's hit up some listener questions here at the wonderful second base position, and we will start with Governor of Givener. He asked, are we counting on a rebound from Altuve? Steamer still seems to like him. I think we're pretty much in agreement that he's going to be definitely better than last year. Should be a nice improvement.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think, we're going to see Altuve of old, but, 280 batting average, 25 home runs, 5 to 10 stolen bases, and some really good counting stats. Hitting, maybe he'll bat leadoff now instead of Springer, right? Now that Springer's gone. And then you're going to have Bregman after him. You're going to have Alvarez. You're going to have Tucker. You're going to have plenty of boppers there. So, yeah, like him.
Our buddy Dave Petroziello, we actually hit on this pretty good on the
preview,
but we'll hit it again. Is Ozzy Albies worth the price? I know Toby won't take him with this pocket aces strategy, but I'm tempted. Love that lineup and the bags he gives. Plus, if Ozuna doesn't sign there, might he hit behind Freeman? Yeah, we like Ozzy Albies. Best way I can put it.
We like it.
Do you think he's worth the price, though, Toby?
I think it's hard. I wouldn't draft him actually, let me just check really quickly, like who's going around him.
You probably want him more back of the third round, not early third round.
Yeah, let's see. So he's now going at an ADP of 31.33, which I think is reasonable. I'd rather Albies than Robert. I'd rather Albies than Scherzer. I'd rather Albies than LeMahieu. Mondesi is a tough one. I'd rather Albies than Seager, though. I mean, Seager's going way out there, man.
Talk about a guy skyrocketing.
Way out. Holy moly. That's something for sure.
Would you rather Ozzy Albies or Tim Anderson?
I think Albies because of the
position.
Yeah. I mean, Tim Anderson is a guy I'm struggling with a little bit, honestly, because I think I loved him where he was going previously, when he was around, like when he was in the 50s, 60s. At pick 33.
It's a little rich.
I mean, I like him. Like the batting average is great. He's got the power speed combo. He's got the runs. So I should be more enthralled about it, but I don't know. There's something about the La Russa thing that rubs me a little bit the wrong way. And also, like, he hasn't been able to stay healthy, Anderson, for a full season in a while. Let me just verify that I'm not making stuff up. I don't think has he reached 600 plate appearances before? Oh, he did in 17-18. But like 518 in 2019, 221 was solid, but he was injured last year again. So I should really be into him. I really should. There's something I just can't. I don't know if I can pull. I'm not sure if I can follow through it on right there. Because the thing is, it's like Tim Anderson at 33. You have JT Realmuto. No, just kidding. I mean, like I like Eloy more, I think, than Tim Anderson. Even though Eloy doesn't have the speed, I think Eloy could be an absolute monster, right? Like, would we be surprised if Eloy hit like 320 with 45 bombs, 100 runs, and 140 RBI next year? Like, not really. Like, because if he's healthy, he could be the best hitter in baseball almost. And so, yeah, I don't know. I got to think about that one. A little bit and figure out what I believe.
Yes, definitely one of the interesting price bumps. Dave's other question, also assuming Starling Castro's risk is okay, his current price is lower than last year. I liked him last year and love him at this price, as I still think the gains in the second half of 2019 are real. Well, Dave, we 100% agree with you there. So jump all over that one. Art, our buddy, Mr. Cheesecake himself from the Triple Play Fantasy podcast, Dear B&B. Look, we're getting Bubba in the BatFlip week. We're getting abbreviations now, B&B. This is just getting so much fun. He's concerned over how much he likes Profar's value. Is it true love, or will he just break my heart again? Signed, Muddled in Maryland. I love his price. Like, I've dug into him quite a bit. I see where Art's coming from. Mr. Cheese is coming from. I get it a ton. Two things for me, and I'll let you have the floor here. I want to see where he signs. That's a big part because of the playing time going to be there. Pick 202 for a guy that showed the power and speed he showed. He's still kind of young. Like, there's a lot to like with him. So I want to see where he signs, and then that'll help me kind of see where he fits in, like, the lineup and those kind of factors that'll make him really worth the situation. Because it's like, do I take him at 202 or do I take Gene Segura at 206 where I know what I'm getting from him? So I understand his love affair. I need to see who the mistress is first. So what's your thoughts on Jurickson Profar?
Yeah, I don't know if I can get there on Profar. I mean, the thing is, he hit 278 this year, which was the highest that he's hit over the course of any season. He hit 7 home runs, only had 5 barrels, right? So that's a little bit tricky. The 7 stolen bases is nice, so the place where he ends up should be nice. But, highest BABIP of his career, he's always struggled with BABIPs, although his expected BA was 284, right? So it's not like he got super lucky. He always has a strong contact rate, always decent plate discipline. So, yeah, I mean, I think it depends where he ends up. Certainly, I worry a little bit about the batting average, but if he's playing every day, and I mean, you look at his projection, 20 home runs, 11 stolen bases, 249, 71, 71 doesn't seem all that ridiculous to consider. So, yeah, I mean, I think he's fine. I think there's other guys I like more going. You said he's going around pick 200. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's guys that I just like a lot more than him. Going in that spot, maybe not necessarily in second base, but I think there's other guys that I would want to grab at that point in time. But
yeah, I really want to see where he goes. Like, say he goes to Yankee Stadium. That's interesting to me. Could be a long shot. I'm just throwing ideas out there. Now, if he goes to the Cardinals, I don't know so much anymore.
Yeah, I was actually thinking Colton Wong to the Yankees. I've heard that.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Colton Wong leading off.
He might actually be able to have power.
Oh man, leading off for the Yankees, going at pick. Let me scroll down again because it's down there. Pick 343 right now. That could be a steal of drafts if you draft early.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's like if you draft in Profar at his price right now. I mean, Josh Donaldson is right in front of him. Andres Jimenez, who I like, just from like a purely, I think he can do the power speed thing at least a little bit with some batting average. Gene Segura, you mentioned, McCutchen. You got some nice relief pitcher stabs right there. So I don't hate it, but I don't necessarily love it.
Yeah, it's tricky. Like I get where he's at. There's just a lot that needs to fall in the right place to make it worth it, because I wasn't on him last year. 7-7 was nice, but I'm with you. Like, the barrels to home runs is not normally a serviceable stat the way he did it. So we'll have to kind of see how that all plays out. The last listener question from our buddy at SMMS79, frequent listener and question giver of the show, which we appreciate greatly. Do you think Nick Madrigal will see time in the top 6 of the Chicago lineup next year? Let's start with that. Do you think Nick Madrigal will see time in the top 6? Let me see where he's.
I don't think it's possible.
No, it's such a loaded lineup. Let me see what. Well, roster resource right now.
They've got to have
been second. They haven't been second.
Batting second?
Yeah,
no.
which he's a table player.
So wrong.
He's limited power. I can see it, but I think that's all my
absolutely not. Absolutely not. You cannot do that. Nick Madrigal is the number 9 batter.
Yeah, I was saying I can see him batting 9th, the wraparound leadoff man, basically.
He's number 9 to the T.
Yeah,
and I think that's ludicrous, because the thing is, all last season they had the same players, and they were batting Moncada in second and Yasmani Grandal second.
Yeah,
that's essentially what they did. I think it was against righties. Moncada was batting second Against lefties, Grandal was batting second, and then against lefties, Eloy would go into the cleanup spot. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, they've got those guys, and then I think they're also gonna get Andrew Vaughn up, right? And so, if depending on if they keep Eloy in the outfield, you add Andrew Vaughn to the equation, right? And there's literally
nowhere for him to go.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, they're going to sign like a Springer or somebody like that too, right? For the outfield. I mean, there's no way that's magical to me in a competent lineup. And again, Bruce is going to be the manager, so we'll see what happens. But like in a competent lineup, I think there's no way that magical ends up there because he just doesn't bring. I mean, he just
no power.
He doesn't bring anything. He doesn't even walk that. I mean, he's got a high batting average, but he doesn't even have that great of an OBP because no pitcher is going to want to walk him, right? They're going to attack the hell out of him. Yeah.
No, I'm with you. I get it. The only way he bats second is because of Tony La Russa. Steamer has him projected for 20 stolen bases, which would be outstanding. But yeah, I'm not going to be a believer in that. I think he makes for the old unofficial second leadoff hitter batting ninth. I'm a big agreement with you there. The other question from my buddy at MSS, he asks, how early would you take Kevin Biggio in an OBP league?
Oh, in an OBP league, I'd have to run the valuations, but I imagine where he's going right now, like around pick 50 in 5x5, like probably around there.
Yeah, he's already going pretty high as it is, so it's going to be tough to move him up much more.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing is like last year in OBPs, you could get him at a discount compared to what he would normally be because a lot of times people don't do the full translation from batting average to OBP because they're so used to the average 5x5, but yeah, that can't happen this year. You're totally right on that. Besides, Bubba's going to pick him up in bar for Sammy's going to pick him up in bar for whatever.
Man, I can't wait to do barf again. Too bad we won't be able to do it in person this year, but I can't wait to do barf again.
Well, we'll see. I mean, you never know. We have no idea how things are going to. Oh, I mean, I'd be super shocked. I don't want to be. I don't want to be disingenuously. Thinking that it's going to happen. It would be an absolute treat if it were able to happen, but we'll see how the vaccine distribution and things like that happen. So
yeah, and trust me, I've been as optimistic as possible on everything along this line, but on that one, I'm pretty much in California. Maybe in another state we would be able to do it. In California, probably.
In another state, we would be able to do it right now.
Yeah, exactly. California, that's not going to happen. So
maybe we can at least do it on Zoom.
I think we will. I think we'll figure something out fun like that for sure. Like that's going to have to happen. So we'll figure that out. But on the bright side, that ends our second base preview, which wasn't as painful as I thought it would be. It's an interesting position. There's different strategies to it. Do you go early? Do you just wait and say, screw it, I'm going to roll the dice? I think it's a fun position for like your draft and hold type formats, your DCs, because that's one, if you do want to punt early and take like 3 guys late, you might have a formidable second baseman in there. That could be a strategy to use. So it's weird. It's gonna be fun when we redo second base in like February to see where guys sign Colton Wong signs and maybe Jerickson Profar and some other guys. Maybe a few trades take place. It might change a little bit, but for now, what are your final thoughts on second base?
Yeah, I mean it's not a position that I love, but there's certainly some values. I think right around that pick 100 spot, especially with some of the guys that you mentioned, kind of that 100 to 150 spot, I think is a really nice place where you have your Marte, you have your McNeil, you have your Dylan Moore, you have your Altuve, you have your Cronenworth. That's like a pretty nice solid area to attack the position, I think. But yeah, it's just not a dynamic position. It doesn't seem like it. So it's not a fun one to fill. But who knows? Maybe after this, maybe I'm a little bit more excited about it.
Yeah, it's better than I thought it was compared to last year, but it still leaves a lot to be desired compared to other positions. That's the best way I'll put it. But we'll be back with you next week. I think. Do you want to do shortstop or third base?
I was going to ask you. The question. Shortstop or third base?
After Thanksgiving. Full stomach. Let's do shortstop. Let's just go get them. Wow. Let's do it. Get a pot of coffee. We're gonna go shortstop.
I don't drink coffee anymore, Bubba.
Oh, you are a diligent, special individual. You really are.
Man, I haven't done coffee in like a year.
That's right. You mentioned it before.
I do decaf. Like I'll have a decaf latte or whatever, but
so you're just no
try
caffeine.
to cut it off. Yeah.
You're a lucky man. You're very lucky, man.
No, what am I doing?
No, you're living a healthy lifestyle.
I am.
So that's on Bubba and the BatFlip 60. Healthy lifestyle, Toby.
Yeah, healthy.
But
next time on Bubba and the BatFlip, we're going to take a look at healthy lifestyles with little guy Brandon Lau.
There we go. Little guy Brandon Lau, as Bubba brings out his caveman projections to tell you all about this stuff. But all right, everybody, we'll just wrap it up there before we go on another tangent. You can check out Toby on Twitter at BatFlipCrazy. I'm Matt Beatty. Entry. Give both the shows a rate and review on iTunes. We'd much appreciate it. And we'll be back with you guys next week with your shortstop preview. But for now, second base is in the books. Catch you guys later.